Okay, so welcome everybody to this week's Quantum Alignment Show. I am Karen Curry Parker. Today we're going to talk about Quirón today. So I'm going to start with just giving you a little bit of background about Quirón and what it is and the importance that it plays in your chart. I know that my intention was to leave as much time as possible to cover as many charts as possible. So it's going to be really quick overviews. I am not doing a whole big chart reading. I am strictly today looking at Quirón. That's actually going to work to your advantage. So you're actually going to find that we're going to hit a lot more common ground than you realize, because Quirón is a relatively slow moving planet. So many of you are going to have the same Quirón. So you're going to learn about maybe somebody else's Quirón, but it's also going to be yours because it's more of a generational kind of planet. And so it moves a little bit slowly. So it'll be relevant to you, all of you. So we're going to talk about Quirón. Now, I want to just look at the meaning of Quirón in the chart. Quirón was actually a centaur, I believe, in Greek mythology. And the centaurs were not particularly nice. They were kind of nasty. But Quirón was a really nice centaur who had healing powers, and he became a healer. So sometimes we talk about Quirón in the astrology chart as being the wounded healer. So what happens with Quirón and the purpose of Quirón is that our Quirón is a place where we bring into our life, I don't like this vocabulary, but roll with me because I don't think we're wounded per se, because our souls are not wounded. But we come into the life and we carry into our life a life purpose. And that life purpose tells us a lot about the story of who you are and what you're here to live in this incarnation. And that story always has built into it a certain degree of challenge, because it's through surmounting the challenges in the chart that we deepen our self-awareness, we learn to love ourselves, we become more masterful over ourselves, and ultimately through that journey of the things that challenge us, we also learn what we need to learn and then ultimately share what we've learned with the world as part of our purpose. And Quirón is very, very much like that. I had a client one time who said that her pastor in her church used to talk about new level, same devil. That every time you up level yourself in your life, every time you go through a cycle of growth and expansion, you end up kind of coming face to face with that same old issue that you probably have been dealing with most of your life. That doesn't mean you're broken, stuck, blocked, screwed up, whatever. It means that's your challenge point. And that devil that comes up every time you up level yourself, you go through a cycle of growth and expansion, and that issue that comes up, maybe it's that thing you've been in counseling before, or you've been in therapy before, and you thought you had it mastered, and boop, there it comes back again every time you do a growth cycle. That's probably your Quirón. There are, by the way, a couple of things in your human design chart, a couple of planets that give us those sort of repeated lessons. Quirón was, let me just show you kind of where it is on the chart so you can see it. It's down at the bottom. Not all human design charts will have Quirón on it, and not all human design people will look at Quirón. I think Quirón is actually very, very important. And part of why I always put it on my charts and use it when I do a reading is because I think that as the nature of our consciousness has changed, the length of our lifespan has changed, and I think the growth and expansion that we're going through as a species right now, that I think ultimately is causing us to become more spiritually conscious beings, that Quirón becomes a really important marker in the chart, particularly not just about what's challenging you, but particularly also about the position of Quirón in the chart being the maturing point in the chart. Let me back up and tell you what I'm trying to say and really get clear about this. First of all, let me give you just some basic background. Quirón was discovered in 1978. In astrology, anytime we discover a planet or a planetoid, that's the moment at which the energy of that planet or that planetoid or asteroids or some of the outer lying celestial bodies that some astrologers look at, the moment it's discovered is the moment it gets activated in your chart. So for some of you who have had a little bit more journey on the path of life, You may, when we look at your Chiron, you might go, oh, in 1978, yeah, I can see how this thing got activated for me, right? So it gets activated in your chart once it's discovered. Now, it also, Chiron especially, really became sort of an interesting marker for a new generation of children. And what we see for those people who are born 1978 and after, Chiron really isn't so much a place of challenge as it really is more an indication of spiritual purpose. And if you remember, if you've been around long enough on this planet to remember some of the phrases like we used to use, like the new children or the indigo children or the crystal children, these children that we talked a lot about in the 90s and in the early 2000s, these are the kids that were born around the time or began to be born around the time of the discovery of Chiron. So Chiron kind of heralded or astrologically sort of demarcated the advent of the new kids, right? The psychic kids, the spiritual kids. So it is interesting to look at what were you doing in 1978 and how did this theme come into the theme of your Chiron play out in 1978? I use Chiron return, meaning the time and day when Chiron returns to the position that was in at the moment of your birth. That's called your Chiron return. That happens approximately between the ages of 48 to 52. I use the Chiron return as the real midlife marker in the chart. From a life cycle perspective, the Chiron return, 48 to 52, somewhere in there, really becomes sort of the line in the sand between your youthful adventures and that place where you have to get eyeball to eyeball with yourself and ask yourself, okay, how serious am I about actually fulfilling my purpose? How deeply committed am I to being who I am, doing what I came here to do? Zero compromise, zero hostages and prisoners. What do I need to do to really get real and authentic about who I am and start working on leaving my legacy on this planet? That's oftentimes what comes up for us when we cross through that Chiron return cycle. And especially for those of you who are 6-line profiles, and the profile is like the little fraction in your chart, and you'll see it, some of you will see it down at the bottom of your chart. It'll say something like role model hermit, or it'll say opportunistic role model if you have a 6 in it. If you have a 6-line in your profile, that is really the point where you step into the fulfillment of your life purpose as a role model. And it tends to be for 6-line profiles, this Chiron return cycle, a little bit more intense than it is for everybody else. But I find that it's actually really an intense cycle for almost everyone. And it is not unusual when you cross into that Chiron return cycle, first of all, for whatever is in your Chiron to get activated again. Okay, so it really gets inflamed. It's like right in your face during that cycle. And it's pushing on you, saying, you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready to really do what you came here to do, right? How that looks in your regular everyday life is that everything that's out of harmony with what you need to do to fulfill your purpose is up for renegotiation. And sometimes we see people saying to themselves, okay, I've done everything I should do, right? I supported my kids. I took care of my kids. I was a good partner. I did the career that I went to college for. Now it's my turn. What do I want? What do I need? And so sometimes when we hit that phase, we're asking ourselves those questions. It is not unusual for everything that is keeping you from being authentic to kind of vibrate out of your field. So sometimes we see big shifts and changes during this Chiron return cycle. We'll see, marriages sometimes come apart. We'll see changes in health, changes in work, changes in finances. It can be a time of really intense upheaval. It's not negative. If you don't know what's happening, you certainly can react to it in a negative way sometimes. But it's really about your life taking off the table anything that's in the way that might be keeping you from fulfilling your life purpose. And as I said, you usually come up eyeball to eyeball with whatever's in your Chiron. When you master this Chiron energy, So this is actually my chart here. So my Chiron is in the 22, which is grace. And the 22 has two different distinct challenges. The first challenge of the 22 is learning to discover and find your own inner beauty, your own grace, right? It is that place where you learn to find what's beautiful inside of you. That's the first part of that. The second part of the 22 is that the 22 is actually a place where we see surrender. And the surrender of the 22 is about trusting that when you let go and do what you came here to do and fulfill your purpose, the emphasis being surrender and trust, right? Big scary words. When you surrender and trust, you will be given all the resources you need to make a difference in the world, to make the world a better place. So there's the theme of acknowledging your own inner beauty, being in your own state of grace with yourself, and being in a place of grace with resources and abundance when you let go and surrender and trust that as long as you're doing what you came here to do and you're aligned with your purpose and your mission and you're being honest and authentic, then you will receive everything you need to do what you came here to do. What I want you to do is look at what gate is your Chiron position is in. Look, what is Chiron lighting up in your chart? And I want you to, from those gates, craft a story. And I really want to encourage you to go on a journaling journey with your Chiron energy, because it's going to tell you a lot about yourself, where you might be holding you back, where you're holding yourself back, and where you might need to dig deeper to bring out the fuller expression of the truth of who you are. That's it. That's all I have to say about Chiron. I'm just going to look at charts now. So let's start first with Sashka. Sashka has Chiron in the 42 in conscious and the 51 unconscious. By the way, just a really quick aside, your conscious design is really more about your soul purpose, even though that sounds counterintuitive. And your unconscious, which is the red, is actually your life purpose, the physical story of what you're living as your human self right now. So the 42 is the gate of finishing things. And it's oftentimes a gate where if you have this as a theme, sometimes you struggle to start things or to know what to start, because the 42 is all about coming into the middle of something and finishing. The 51, though, here's where you start to see themes play out also beautifully, is sometimes called the gate of shock, but it's not really about or designed to be about shocking you, like to although sometimes it can be really unsettling. It's really ultimately an energy that is about being initiated. I call it the spiritual barbed wire fence gate. Now, what it means basically, if you've got 51 anywhere in your chart, when you start to get off your path, or when you start to use your personal will to override divine will, life tends to come along and go bzz, bzz, and shock you back onto your path. So it is an initiating or a starting energy. So what we see in Sashka's chart is that she has a theme that is about knowing when to start, knowing what to start, and knowing what to finish. So I would imagine, looking at this chart, that the challenge for Sasha is to find her own inner place of direction so that she knows what to start and what to finish. And ultimately, when she learns that she is here to be in the flow of connection with her own self and her own intuition, and for her as the manifesting generator, the energy and the power and the direction of her sacral, that she will be in the flow of responding to whatever it is she needs to start and finish. And when she can be in that flow and get out of her head and trying to figure out what should I be doing, what should I be doing, what should I be doing, what should I start, what should I finish, she will ultimately serve as initiating force to teach people about the power of being aligned with the natural flow of spirit in the world. This is actually a very mystical, spiritual little chart here. Amy's Chiron is in the 27. The 27 is located right here. The 27 is the gate of responsibility. It is sometimes an energy that can be very closely associated with being, in its low expression, somewhat codependent, because what happens a lot of times with the 27 is you feel responsible for other people all the time. You want to take care of them, you want to nurture them, you want to love them. Sometimes at fault to yourself, meaning, or at cost to yourself, meaning you can compromise your own well-being for the sake of service to others. So the challenge here is learning to answer the following question. Okay? Whose problem is it? Okay, if you can learn to answer the question, whose problem is it, and take responsibility for yourself and learn to give other people responsibility for their own stuff, you then become someone who is here to teach people how to stand in a place of self-empowerment and to be accountable and responsible for their own power, their own energy, their own contribution to the world. The 21. The 21 sometimes is called the gate of control. It is the gate of the treasurer, is what we call it in human design. It has a theme of controlling. When you have the 21, your challenge is to learn to let go. Your challenge is to learn to trust. Your challenge is to not try to control things you're not in control of, and not to try to control others. And it's actually kind of interesting, particularly in this chart. This is a powerhouse of a chart. Jennifer has got like huge power configurations in this chart. So it's very easy for Jennifer to go, thanks God, I got this. Don't worry about it. I'll take it from here. And to not be in the divine flow of the unfolding of the cosmic plan because she wants to take control or charge of it, especially if it's not happening fast enough. So the theme for the 21 is to learn to let go, because when you let go, then you have access to actually greater power, and the resources that you have, by the way, this is also a teaching gate, the resources that you have then become more abundant, and you have greater capacity from learning to let go to be able to share with others. Martha has the 13, one of my favorite gates. The 13 is the gate of the listener, or the gate of the witness. And when you hold the 13 in your energy field, people tell you everything and anything. You become the keeper of the secrets. But it's from the stories that you bear witness to that you help people ultimately redefine the stories so that they can change the direction of their life. This is a direction giving energy. It's right here on the G. And the truth is, the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves in our lives, those stories actually cause us to create direction in life. The stories we have give direction to who we are. If you don't like the stories you're telling yourself and you want to change, if you don't like the direction your life is taking, you got to change a different story, tell a different story about who you think you are. So Martha's challenge in this Chiron, and for anybody who has the 13 in Chiron, is to not get stuck in the past, to not let the fear of the past repeating itself, and not let old stories and unforgiveness hold you back from crafting a story about who you believe yourself to be, so that you can begin to take your life in a direction that's really a reflection of the value of who you are. And once you learn to do that, then that's part of what you're here to give and share with the world. All right, so here we have one where we have two different gates. We have the 35, which is sometimes called the Jacker, the Jill of all trades. I like to call it the gate of ennui. You've been there, done that. People with a 35 can generally figure just about anything out because they've got enough experience about knowing how to know that they can learn something pretty easily. The 45 is the gate of the Queen, and it's one of the leadership energies in the chart. So here we have somebody who has the 35, who has a journey that is about gaining or learning experience. And I would say probably one of Erica's challenges has been potentially having too much experience, not knowing when to stop having experiences, maybe sometimes boredom, which can be sort of a theme of this too. Boredom has driven her to leap from thing to thing to thing, and to try and to not quite get to that place where she has felt masterful because she's tried so many things. But ultimately, as she crosses that maturing point in the chart, it's from all of the variety of experiences that she's had that she weaves a tapestry of mastery. And then ultimately with that 45 is designed to take leadership based on her wisdom and her knowledge and experience of everything that she's experienced. The challenge is, especially in this chart, is her own sense of inadequacy, feeling like I don't know enough, I don't have enough experience, I'm not ready to lead, I'm not capable of leading, I need more time, I need more knowledge. None of that is true. You've got this, Erica. Go out and conquer the world and lead the world and teach them what you know. Liz has the 51. We've talked a little bit about the 51 as being an initiating gate. This is also somebody who has crossed the consciousness, I believe. So again, the 51 is about learning to stay connected to source and spirit as your direction giving energy, staying aligned with natural order, with the cosmic plan, staying connected to that, and trusting that no matter what unfolds, you know intuitively deep inside of yourself what you need to do, and you recognize that everything that happens to you is part of a cosmic plan that supports you in continuing to awaken and evolve and expand your consciousness. Every event in your life, when you have the 51 in Chiron, or your Chiron is in the 51, every event in your life has been about making sure you stay awake, stay connected to source, stay aligned with spirit, and that you don't fall into a state of despair and feel powerless over what's going on, but that you instead recognize that you are constantly being poked by the universe to stay awake, because your purpose in life ultimately is to wake other people up to spirit, to be an initiating force in whatever it is that you teach and share with the world. You're here to wake people up with what it is that you know and what it is that you're capable of and what it is that you've experienced in your own life and your understanding of spirit. You will, however, sometimes be a little shocking in how you wake them up. Nisa has the 42, which we talked about earlier, which is the gate of finishing things, and the 3, which is an energy of mutative innovation. So again, if you remember this, I just want to point this out because human design has a lot of numbers and a lot of stuff in it. There's nothing random in this chart. It's a story, and it's a story that sometimes plays out with different characters, but the themes, the challenges of what it means to be human and the adventures of the human experience are pretty consistent and pretty clear in the chart, and they play out in lots of different ways, but they play out over and over again. Anyway, okay, so the 42 is finishing things. The 3 is also kind of an initiating or starting energy. The 3 is about bringing in something completely new, right? Bringing in a new idea, an innovation, a new concept. It's very innovative and very edgy, right? So Nissa has this challenge of letting go of the old, that's the finishing in the 42, and embracing the new. And I would even venture to guess, looking at this chart, that Nisa has probably always been, as a manifester, in this very powerful cycle of always being on the leading edge of what's next, always being on the leading edge of what's new, or feeling like she's not keeping up. So she has to keep working, learning, growing, because if she doesn't keep working, learning, growing, she's not going to feel like she's staying on that leading edge of the next new, exciting, adventurous thing. And ultimately, what she's here to do is to give other people direction in staying on the cutting edge or the leading edge of what's next, what's innovative, and what's new. The Chiron in the 3, I just talked about the 3, that's that innovation. So when you've only got the innovation here without anything other factor in the Chiron, it means that George's challenge is always going to be about, how do I keep new? How do I stay current? How do I continue to evolve? How do I know what's the next new thing to do? How do I stay true to the innovations that I long to bring forward into the world? Where do I find my tribe of people who fit in with me, who I fit in with, who are willing to stay on the leading edge of whatever's next on the planet? So I would venture to guess, Georgia, you may have spent a certain amount of time in your life wondering, where the heck are my people? And when is the spaceship coming back to get me? Right? So, Susan. Here we have a new one. Susan's Chiron is in the conscious 41. The 41 is the gate of fantasy. It's an energy that is actually a very powerful alchemical energy. The human design year actually starts on the 41. And the 41 is an energy that sort of does an overview of the world. And in response to what it sees, comes up with fantasies about what else is possible. So it's a very powerful beginning energy, a very creative energy. And it's from that vision of what else is possible. And remember, this is that place where we recognize and understand everything in our world right now. My computer table, my computer, my coffee cup, my earbuds, whatever is in your reality. Everything started first with an idea, a thought in mind, right? So that 41 energy is that idea, it's that spark, it's that initiating concept that, oh, what would happen if? So she has this tremendous creative energy in her conscious Chiron. Her unconscious Chiron is in the 19. Now, the 19 is all about intimacy. It's about connection. It's about, sometimes it's about neediness. It's also, by the way, an energy, if you have this in your chart anywhere, that connects you deeply with mammalian energy. So oftentimes people with this energy are, they're animal empaths or animal communicators, and they have a deep connection with the animal world. And certainly they can be highly sensitive. They can be, people with the 19 especially are usually very sensitive, highly sensitive people who can sense and feel shifts and changes in energies and emotional energies, and can tell like what's going on in the world based on shifts and changes in the energies. With the 41 and the Chiron in the 41 and then the 19, the challenge here is not letting the sensitivity of who she is or what she experiences and feels drop her into fantasy to the degree to which she's not grounded and connected with reality and gets stuck creating what she really wants to be creating, who maybe compromises what she really wants to create in order to please other people. Now, Susan, if you're listening, I just want you to know that you are designed to be extraordinarily successful doing something exceptionally unusual. You are not designed to be normal. And if you're compromising who you are and what you want to create because you're trying to fit in and because you're afraid it's going to rock the boat and upset everybody else, give it up, lady. Go for it. Go for the full-on creative self. By the way, the 41 oftentimes is also the marker of a writer and people who like to write and create in that way as well. So go out there and get your creative energy on and go create what you're here to create, and don't worry about what other people think. Okay, Linda, she says, what are some empowered ways to break free from my old patterns of my Chiron? All right, the 54. I love the 54. It's one of my favorite Chiron energies. You were probably born around 1954 because that's when this was transiting through. So Chiron in the 54 is actually, this is also an initiating energy. It can sometimes be an energy about knowing what to start and when to start. This is the place where business ideas are born. So sometimes people with the 54 have a lot of ideas and they have to wait until the timing is right before they can make their ideas happen. So when I see somebody who is this powerful, this is a very powerful chart. She's a manifesting generator with leadership, with passion, with creativity, with impact in her chart, right? When I see somebody that has this much power and this much passion, but who has the 54, Chiron in the 54, it says sometimes if you're not waiting and paying attention to the cues and slowing down and taking a breath and really being clear about what you want to create, you might be creating willy-nilly all over the place. When you are aligned with what's correct for you, meaning when you take your time and you're conscious and deliberate, your business ideas and your other ideas actually can come to fruition. That 54 is actually the energy of enlightenment. It is the place where when we are connected again to that source of divine ideas instead of our own ideas, our own answers, when we stay connected to the source of divine ideas, we are inspired then to create things that transform pain in the world into something of value and ultimately supports the world in transforming and becoming a more joyful and beautiful place. So I would say for you, Linda, the trick is meditate. And you might need to do a walking meditation because it's probably hard for you to sit. Okay. Chiron, Alina in the 24 and the 27. Oh, this is an interesting one. Chiron in the conscious 24 and the unconscious 27. The 24 is a tricky little gate. It's a gate that is called rationalization. And sometimes what happens with the 24 is you literally rationalize. Sometimes you rationalize allowing less than what you're really worthy of, or you rationalize staying in situations that are not good for you, and you put up with or you tolerate less than what you deserve. Now, the 27, which is the unconscious position of this Chiron, as I talked about earlier, is responsibility. And it can sometimes be taking on responsibility for things that you're not responsible for, or for other people, and denying other people the opportunity to experience the accountability and responsible for their own choices. So, Alina, same question for you as I said before. Whose problem is it? That is the most important question for you to learn to answer for yourself. Whose problem is it? And if it is not your problem, give it back to the person who it belongs to. And secondly, question here for you is, are you tolerating or allowing less than what you're really worthy of? And are you rationalizing staying put in situations that are not good for you because you're rationalizing it? So once you master that rationalization, and once you learn about responsibility and you learn how to give it back to the people where it belongs, you are here to help people find the blessings in their pain. And you're here to hold them accountable for discovering what they can do with those blessings so that they can turn those blessings into changes in who they believe themselves to be and define themselves to be, so they can go forward in the world in a brand new and empowered way. Looking at Tanya's at the Chiron. Chiron is in the 2 and the 24. Again, the rationalization piece and the unconscious. And the 2 is about receptivity. I love the 2. It is actually a hexagram that's called yin-yang. It is purely feminine, not by gender, but feminine by energy, purely about receiving. What the 2 says, the 2 actually comes off the bottom of the G center here. The 2 says that because I am who I am, I am fully supported in receiving everything I need to fulfill my purpose in the world. Okay? We are actually designed to be abundant because we exist, not because of anything we do. But what happens to a lot of us, especially because we are taught to use our willpower and to go out and make it happen, and the value of who we are is directly tied to how much work we do, that's not true. You are valuable because you exist. But that too is about allowing yourself to receive, to allow yourself to be supported in a way that is worthy of you. To not rationalize, in your case, Tanya, not rationalize receiving less than, to not rationalize allowing less than, or to push away. That's the other part of allowing, right? Is you, oh no, not me, no, pushing away that support because you've rationalized that you don't need it, or you don't have to have it, or you don't want to take it away from other people. So don't rationalize not allowing. Okay, allow yourself. And then find again the blessings and the challenges, and from those blessings teach other people how they can allow greater and better things in their life too. So the 61, the sun in the conscious 61, the 61 is up here at the top, one of the head center gates. It is the gate of wonder. I mean, literally like wonder, staying in a state of wonder and awe. It is an energy that causes you to spend a lot of time thinking about why. And it's not just why, like, why me, but why, like, why is the sky blue? Why do the birds sing? Why are we here? Why? It's those beautiful, unanswerable, pondering, awe, and wonder-filled kinds of questions. And it is actually one of the most creative energies in the chart. In fact, the more we stay in the question of, or the state of wonder and awe, the more we actually stimulate our creativity, and we allow ourselves to transcend our conditioning, to push beyond the limitations of what we're conditioned to think is possible, and to attract into our experience things that go beyond what we think are possible. So a very, very important, very, very creative energy. The 61 is about staying in a state of wonder, but not getting trapped in the question why, and then trying to figure it out, which is going to be easy to do with this chart, Sylvia. So don't worry about figuring out the why. Stay in the state of wonder and let the answers show up for you. The 54 is enlightenment. Please, please, please meditate. If you can meditate or find some way to quiet your mind and not drive yourself crazy trying to figure everything out, and just hold that space, the epiphanies will show up for you. And ultimately, you are here to teach people how to connect more deeply with the state of wonder and the state of enlightenment that ultimately is a source of tremendous creative power in the human experience. Please remember that we are looking at parts of the chart out of context of the whole. The big answer to how do I master my Chiron is this. You ready? Live true to your type and your strategy. Follow your type and your strategy. Your life is going to naturally unfold when you live true to who you are in such a way that you will begin to get everything you need to live the more masterful expression of not just your Chiron, but everything in your chart. You are designed to love yourself, to be powerful, to be fully expressing the truth of who you are, to be defining stories that give you direction in life in the way that work best for you, to be supported by spirit, to be physically vital, to get all the resources, to allow all the resources you need to do what you came here to do, and to ultimately share who you are with the world in a way that's healthy and powerful and compassionate for not only yourself, but for the people around you. Live your strategy and all those little pieces will line up. You're going to find, because as I said, there's nothing random in these charts. Whatever the theme is in your Chiron is probably playing out in your Saturn. It's probably playing out in your Mars. It's probably playing out in your Neptune. It's possibly playing out in your Moon. It's probably playing out in your nodes. It's probably playing out in your incarnation cross. Everything in the chart is pretty consistent and true, and it's pretty aligned. So you're probably not going to have this, I'll guarantee you, you're not going to have this random weird thing stuck on the bottom of your chart called your Chiron. It's playing a big part in the entire picture of who you are and the story of what you're here to master in this lifetime. But go play with it. Here's the bottom line. You are designed to not be in pain. Okay, how's that? There is no suffering on the human design chart. Zero, nada. You can't find suffering on the chart. We're not designed to suffer. But sometimes when we get stuck in the struggle and we get stuck in the repressed and the rebellious expression of our energies, when we resist ourselves, when we buy into the myth that we are less than who we are or that we shouldn't be who we are because we don't fit in or it's not right, when we settle for or rationalize, we talked about the gate 24 a lot, rationalize allowing less than what we're worthy of, then we artificially create suffering in our lives. We're not designed to suffer. So please, if you will, do this work. Look at what might be holding you back. Discover who you are. Figure your chart out, either on your own or get some support from a human design specialist. We have tons of amazing, beautiful people who are really, really great and very compassionate and well-trained and just love to help you go through your chart and figure yourself out so that you can really craft for yourself a life that you're worthy of living. Don't let yourself be held in an artificial prison of your own making that keeps you, that holds you back from being who you really are. Go out, be free, be who you are. We need you to be who you are. You deserve to be who you are. And I definitely think you deserve to not be suffering. No suffering. The moratorium on suffering. All right? Good. For your help, thank you all for joining us this week. And talk to you soon. Bye.